Hello and welcome to Double D Do Business. I am Debbie Evans.
And I'm Dave Evans.
And if you haven't listened to us before, we want to do a very, very quick intro into season 2. This is episode 1. And we wanted to just give you an insight into how we actually do it. So we have, Dave's just nodding by the way, so this is a really good intake, is that we have a non-edited podcast. We do it in one sitting, and you'll notice that on this podcast that we actually get to the end and we forget to do a full ending. So it is very natural, very conversational. I am waiting for Dave to interrupt me at some point.
I won't, because you're talking in flow. So my comments are simple, Debbie. I agree with you. Our style is chat show. It's about real conversations. They go where they go.
They do go where they go.
And our guests follow the same formula. We like to ask our guests when they come on the show 3 key things in season 2. We're going to talk about the main thing they're doing, the biggest thing they've learned, and what they want listeners to remember. So we'll follow that all the way through this new season.
Or we might not, just so that you know, we might deviate as well.
Who knows what's going to happen.
Who knows what's going to happen.
What we do promise you, though, is a couple of things. Everything you listen to will be applicable to something. There'll be techniques, there'll be ideas, there'll be philosophies and things you can actually take off the podcast. And it also stimulates, we've been told, other thinking too. What we do know is our energy is here for you, and our energy is to deliver the very best version of what we can be, bringing you value in Double D Do Business.
You'll notice that Dave's accent changes as he goes along as well. Anyway, we hope you enjoy this first episode of season 2. If you're a new listener, welcome. If you're an existing listener, thank you. It
welcome
means
back.
Masses to us. And please do note, by the way, on our podcast, you can actually record a message and send it to us. So you can do that in the podcast. So please do follow us. Follow us on @RLC Global Group on all social media as well. And again, if you do want to work with us, just let us know at either info@rlc-global.com or even email Dave or myself direct at Dave or Debbie at rlc-global.com. We look forward to hearing from you and we look forward to your feedback. Enjoy episode 1.
Welcome back to Double D Do Business, and this is officially season number 2, Debbie. We made it to the second season. Welcome, we have Debbie Evans with us here today. I forgot to introduce you, Debbie, didn't I? And I'm Dave Evans.
Sorry, we're actually 15 seconds in, and all you've done is talk about you and
I'm Dave
voice.
Evans. That's true. Yeah. Not intended at all, Debbie. It's we've been on podcast holiday, haven't we? Really, since season 1.
Well, we've not been on holiday since season 1, have we? So we've finished season 1 in a finale, which was awesome.
Truly awesome.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And if you haven't listened to any of our podcasts, then listen to the final one, and because there's also a video that you can watch where we got 80% of our guests that had been on the podcast before. So fantastic. So we thought we'd set off season 2, and I am Debbie Evans, and you are
Dave Evans,
with Monty Dog Halls Evans with us as well. And we thought we'd kick off with just Dave and I talking for this one. So I'm going to tell you something. If you don't know, clearly Dave and I spend a lot of time together because we work together. But when I talk, Dave moves his mouth. So when I'm talking, he's still moving his mouth as though he's going to say something.
It's because I have to listen to you. I have to track and map what it is you're saying. Anyway, in this episode, there are 7 bits of information throughout 7
right,
that we want you to be aware of when you're listening, because season 2, Debbie, has a very specific theme. Now, those of you that know RLC, our core business, we spend our time helping businesses become the best version of themselves and individual and team. So you're going to hear us point to that message more often than not throughout our episodes.
Yeah, and also we will talk about this through season 2 as well. So if you're a business that's looking to establish your why factor, what it is that you're doing, defining that and honing that. What we did over the past 18 months, 2 years, is using our own products and services, and yes, we are going to promote those, but in regards to it's making sure that we had a definitive tagline and what do we stand for, because we really struggled for a while because our business is so varied and we accommodate clients' needs without really looking at what we did overall. It was very difficult just to say in a sentence, what do we do? Wasn't it?
So, Debbie, you've been in RLC now how long for?
Why? 5 years.
5 years. So I just want to represent time properly, because we do a lot more than that. And we actually apply our processes to our business all the time. So what we were struggling with was a simple marketing one line that captured our brand essence entirely every time, wasn't it?
Right, so if anybody's listening, they'd also know I've just clearly said that because
Did you?
Dave and I must speak different languages, because several times this week and last week, and the week before, maybe the month before, maybe last year.
Yeah,
2019. So yes, Dave, I'm aware that we knew what we did, but what I was saying was we couldn't articulate it in a really short phrase. So somebody would ask and I'd say whatever the current project was, but I wouldn't actually tell them what we did. So we create best version businesses, and we do that through we coach, we consult, and we create.
So that's 4 things. So we said 7.
No, you said 7.
Yeah, indeed. Now I want to concentrate. We are on 3 minutes and 42 seconds. I want to get these 7 things away before we pass the 6-minute mark, so that we can actually get into first episode podcast season 2 at Double D Do Business. Now the other items, so you said coach, consult and create, are self, teams and business. That's 6. And the overarching message about, are you a best version business? Not cliche, not the stuff people write about online. Are you actually a best version business? Do you apply that literally in your customer metrics, the way you deliver your services, the programs you deliver, the products you deliver, the people you lead, your personal branding, which we're going to come back to in a moment? Do you actually do it? Or are you a talker or a doer? Debbie.
Okay, so best version, and if you do follow us on social media, you'll see, one, we've changed our look, which I really like, by the way, but we're very, very specific about best version. It is overused, it is a cliche, it is quite frustrating because it has been picked up as a tagline, but it's a historic language that we've used for a long time as RLC. And best version is, and hold on, I've got something to tell you about, because one of the things we're committed to is that I would be able to have my say and say certain things. So I'm going to have a Debbie Rant and a moment. So in reference to best version and people abusing and manipulating and using it for all the wrong things, best version means that no matter what you are doing, whether it's be with yourself, your teams or your business or your customers, best version means that whatever you are in at that moment, mindset, attitude, belief, you have to be the best version of self, because real life is real life, and sometimes it's pretty tough and difficult and challenging, and we can allow lots of the external noise impact us. It's a rant. I'm allowed to go on, Dave. Dave's looking at me asking me to stop.
No, your rant was I have to say, as your first rant of the season.
It's brilliant.
It was average. It was average.
So do we have to score the rant?
No, because I think, what I saw happening was you hit the rant noise. The rant doesn't start at the point of the noise. I think we all want to get used to it as a trigger, right? So when we hear that noise, you're not allowed to rant yet, because then your energy is going to build up and your rant's going to go boof.
Right. Okay.
So you have to play the whole jingle. So hopefully Debbie won't have another rant.
I will have another rant.
It is likely at this stage. So every episode, we're going to give you a chance to think about 3 things: coaching, consulting, and creating. And then another 3 things, which is 6.
You said it was 7.
It is 7. I'm going to come. You were doing the number 1. So anyway, 7 things. I think we've made a real hash of that. But hey, we're back.
No, sorry. Again,
I made a hash of that.
Dave has made a hash
I've
of
made
that.
a hash of that. So let's talk about coaching and creating, Debbie, because I've come across something this last week that has been driving me absolutely nuts.
Okay. I'm waiting for you.
Oh, what are you waiting for? That's what you have to say. What is it, Dave?
What is it, Dave, that's been driving you nuts this week?
It's because somebody might not realise that, that's what they were thinking. Anyway, who in their career has ever had this happen to them? Somebody else say to you, you're always like that, whatever that is. Who has also found themselves, hold on, be warned, wait, there's a rant coming. Here comes. Oh, we've got a bit more time here for the rant.
It goes for 2 minutes, this whole thing.
Oh, does it? So, rant.
Okay, this is a challenge and an issue that I have big time, is that people force their assumptions, their opinions and their bias on another person. And ultimately, may I just say, this is a short rant, that their person is the one that has the issue, not the person they're projecting on. Rant over.
That's a good rant, Debbie. And I think, if I just go over the last week, I've seen people applying opinions to professional people from over 5 years ago today. How does that even help the person? I've seen people presupposing or guessing or assuming what the other person's response is going to be, which is head trash, right? I've seen people being mistreated by leaders who are literally applying the paradigms and set views to the people they lead. And I think that it's time for that to stop.
So, what we need to do on this podcast, and we did historically in season 1 excellently well, if I say so myself, is that we gave you examples. So, and this is a really great example. And then we gave you how to overcome them and how to deal with it. And it always starts with self, and everything that we do starts with self.
One of the six, but
everything does start with self. So What we have is there are, I would see, 3 outcomes from these scenarios. So that if you are the person and you choose, and it's all choice, if you choose to reference somebody's past behaviours in the workplace, and also please reference this back to your personal life, if you choose to reference somebody's past behaviours when you're dealing with a current issue, then the person that is in the wrong is you, because you're going to completely dilute any impact or influence or change by focusing on the past and not the current issue. Dave said to me years and years ago was about putting everything in the washing machine, and it was a habit I did a lot, where you'd have this discussion that then turned into, well, from our side it just turned into a one-sided marital raid. But in regards to, it would be and then everybody will know the scenario. Oh, you did this last week. Oh, well, when you said that last year. Oh, and you did that and you did that, and you then start bringing all of this stuff in. And the only person this is actually helping is the person who's doing the dispersing and accusations and historical references. The damage it does to the other person is that they can't actually move forward, and they can't actually learn, or they can't change.
It wastes time.
It wastes time. And
hours and hours.
It's emotionally exhausting. So that's one example. So that's a very personal situation. Dave's put his hand up.
I did, because I think before you give another example,
yes,
I want to start off with a first solution.
Okay.
So it was a good example.
Okay.
In our business NLP program called Firestarter, we talk about some of the linguistical clues, the language clues people are always giving us. One of the best one, and there are multiple layers to this, but I only want to concentrate on a singular version, is the word they, right? So when somebody says a sentence, they always say that. They're all thinking this. You have to have the courage to ask who they are. Because quite often, as we know, Debbie, people who say they usually mean themselves anyway.
Yes.
Or it's somebody else's command or somebody else's message, and they haven't bought into themselves enough, otherwise they say this is what I think, right? So the first thing is, if someone is applying a paradigm or a set view to who you are, you have to have the courage to have that conversation, whoever it is with. And don't let the image in their mind stick. Because if somebody says that to you and you let it go, it's actually your fault.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
You've got to politely say, I'm really sorry, why do you think that? I don't understand. And ask for clarity.
Well, I think there's two ways to ask for it. So that is one way.
Yeah.
And I think it is about then being very specific and say, thanks for letting me know that this is your opinion. Who are they? Are you speaking on behalf of somebody? If not, then can I have your opinion? And we have to be brave and respectful. And I think this is the biggest part of, and ultimately this is a conflict and challenging conversation. A lot of businesses now call them courageous conversations, which is another rant that I'm not going to go into. But this is just having the ability to converse from human to human and have respect from each other's perspective. I don't know what you're thinking and you don't know what I'm thinking. So I have to ask those questions. Dave, why do you think that you can speak for somebody else? If you're speaking on somebody else's behalf, then let me know. Because if that's not your opinion, and no, but it's true, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I was thinking about all the funny answers to that question. Because there aren't many, right? One would be, because they hired me. So they've legally paid me to come and tell you, right? But that's not going to happen, is it, in a normal peer-to-peer?
No, but I think there's two things, isn't there, in reference to dealing with this situation. Is one, our own fear can stop us from having that conversation. So this could be a boss or a line manager or somebody else's boss who's having that conversation with you. But when it is an attack on self and somebody is historically using past references, it therefore means that they haven't changed, but you have. And referencing and allowing you to put yourself forward to say, I really appreciate that I may have done that 7 years ago. Right now, this is how I do it. This is what I do. And reference really clear, significant points that you do so that it gets dismissed, because you can't keep going back to what somebody did in the past. I can talk, and I know we did this in season 1, I reference a lot to our personal life and our family, and Dave sticks to the professional stuff, which is probably a really good way to go. But in reference to this, I do genuinely believe that when we are talking about professional things and encounters, if we reference them back to personal situations, because they can actually really hurt us, it allows us to see and change quicker. What are you looking at?
And nothing. I love what you're saying, Debbie. I was concerned about breathing, like Wim Hof breathing and pausing, because sometimes the quality of your information is so good. We should slow it down a bit so we can really think about.
I can actually do that in settings if you
want. Okay, no. Yeah. Well, like a dubbing.
Hello, this is so
when you're actually anyway. No, yeah. So, I think this is important.
It is important.
And I think people do this regularly in business, and it's time for it to stop.
Yeah.
Because I think we apply a paradigm or a set view to people instead of having a conversation.
I agree.
So having the conversation is much, much better for you. And the word they is technically called an unspecified referential index, which means the originator of the conversation is missing. And therefore the coaching question is, who said that? And if they say somebody did say that, you got choices after that, haven't you, Debbie? You did S plus C minus I equals O. In the first season, your choices are, well, let's go and talk to them. Choices are, but did they really? Where's the evidence?
Yeah, did they ask you to bring this to my attention? It's those kind of things. And ultimately, what we should be doing is we shouldn't be having or referencing somebody else's conversation to another. Yeah. We have to start owning and being accountable and responsible for the things that we do, and not hiding behind somebody else or a made up somebody else because it justifies and makes you feel better. And I think that's ultimately why people do it. It's easier to say to somebody, or they think it is anyway, they think it's easy to say to somebody, they have told me you did this. Now, who are they?
There's one more issue here, Debbie, in this that I've come across over the last week or so, is that some of the people who have been affected by this have been people who invest in their coaching, they invest in their personal brand, they go out of their way to develop themselves, and the line manager applies the old picture. And it's not applying that person is doing their very best. Because if you think about a couple of things we just highlighted there, is that if you are a leader listening to this, and you're thinking about this through a coaching aspect, our consulting here is, you should be working on your external brand as well as your internal one. An external brand is, even if you're a middle manager, do you go to a networking group? do you meet other like-minded professionals?
Or not.
Or not.
Or not like-minded.
Or like-minded, yeah. Or different people that you need to be stretched or learn from. I remember many years ago, I used to go fell running with a friend of mine who was a CFO in a hotel company. And we used to talk about all kinds of things from his world as a financial expert whilst out running and spending time together. And it was really good for me as a coach. It was really good to get a different perspective from a very analytical mind, as well as having a great relationship, building great rapport, creating great memories. So it's what are those other things you can do that have an external reference that validates the great work you do, as well as all the things you do on the inside a company too.
I think I might go to sneeze, so I do apologise if I do sneeze. So the learning here is, one, we have to be responsible and accountable for our own language, our own behaviours, our own assumptions and biases. And the referencing as well is that somebody else will also have that same behaviour, because everybody does it. It's just making sure that we understand when it's happening and that we actually have the conversation to stop it from happening and not reference past and historical aspects of things that we may have done.
So is there any other tips you can apply to this, Debbie? So if you're the person who's had that happen to them, what type of things can affect you, do you think?
Well, it can imbalance you, it can emotionally destabilise you, you can be demotivated to the point of unproductive, ineffective. And what you've also got to remember, and I always coach this, we don't know somebody else's agenda. And unfortunately, we all have agendas. And the agenda can be as simple as, I am driving home and I want chocolate cake for dinner, but we're on a diet, or we're eating healthy. No, listen, but let me explain. So what I then go, when I walk in the house, I have the agenda where I want. This is not me, Dave, because I don't really like chocolate cake. But
I know, but the idea is just going with your idea flow. So this is not having chocolate cake after dinner.
No, for dinner.
And this is not having it before dinner.
For dinner.
This is for dinner.
Yeah. So what you do then is...
What a meal.
Yeah, so that's your agenda. You then, an individual, manipulate conversations, situations to get said chocolate cake for dinner. And people actively do it. Yes, I know that's extreme. But let me give you a real example then. So it might be that you've been working late and you're going home to your partner. They've been working from the home office all day, and your agenda is you just want to slouch in front of the TV and you want them to make dinner, right? Really great. But what you've not understood is how the other person's had their day, what's gone in their day. You've got your agenda, they've got their agenda. And instead of having a conversation about it, what then happens is you clash. You might even have an argument over something, then it all gets exploded. This is what we do as humans. So go back to the workplace and everybody has an agenda. You know, there's hierarchy, there's stuff going on, there's cultural changes, there's reorgs. All of this is happening in the workplace, and we go and do the same behaviours that we do. And it is playground-esque. So if we actually stop using our agenda and become aware that somebody else may have an agenda, it means we have more consideration and considered choice. So therefore, said situation, going back to somebody has been referencing your past behaviour and not recognising any current changes and things that you're doing, means that you are going to respond to their negativity when you've got a choice to go, thanks for letting me know that you still think that I behave like this. These are the things that I may do. It's our choice. It's our responsibility to not fit to that other person's agenda, because a lot of us will sit there and just take it. And then by not dealing with it, guess what we've done? We've just sealed the fate that our behaviour hasn't changed, even though we might have demonstrated for the past 18 months. And another really good example of this would be is if there's team changes or line manager changes. You know, reorgs happen a lot in big businesses. And they come with somebody else's assumptions, or somebody else is, you know, you might not have got on with your previous boss, but somebody else then carries that in, their agenda, carries that into this new team and starts judging people from somebody else's perspective.
I think you made a mistake, Debbie.
What?
You didn't hit the ramp button.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
that was like perfect. Again, I think there's so much in this that I want to flip this over now and really focus on solutionizing some of this. We've spoken about calling out the they.
Yes.
We've spoken about having brave courage to ask questions about things you're not sure about, things you don't agree with. A couple of months ago, I was talking to a client in the US, and we were going through their strategic review, and they were talking about best ways to get the best out of their people, best ever, right? And one of the things that we still haven't worked through to a product yet is this idea of doing a coaching or a one-to-one session. This is less coaching, more conversational review of how someone is doing, right?
I have a rant about that, but I won't do that.
And I had this view that if you do a big conversation with somebody, you have the conversation, it's called a 1+1, not a 1-2-1. But the following day, both parties know you're going to check in. Because how many times have you had a conversation in your career, I know I have, where you have a chat, you think it went okay, and then hindsight kicks in. You play back the words used. Maybe you make the mistake. You go home, you tell your spouse or partner. What you tell your spouse or partner, then they reinforce a limited belief or based on what you said, not because of what they think, right? Now you go to bed that night thinking, oh really, I messed that up. And then you start to believe it, and weeks go by and suddenly it's become a belief system. Whereas with this 1+1 instead of a 1-2-1, if you both know the following day you are going to have a 14-minute conversation or less that's going to go like this. Hey Debbie, you know that chat we had yesterday, we were relatively agreed on what we were going to do. Did you have any reflections? Did you have any feelings you didn't like? Did you think things afterwards that you went to seek a third person's view on? If so, let's talk through what they are and make sure we still understand each other. And you create a platform, I think, for the other person or for both parties to be able to say, I don't understand. I didn't quite get what you meant. Or actually, in some worst cases, you've really offended me by the way you did that. And it's troubled me a lot. Or I can't get past words you used. How many people have you coached, Debbie, who get stuck with just phrases and adjectives, right? In the way it was said. What if you could eliminate that the following day? In a clear in the decks check-in that says, did we get that right? Are we in the same place we thought we were? Fantastic.
I'm going to trademark 1+1, so if anybody tries to say that, I'm going to just let you know. I'm going to do that.
All right.
Anyway, I think that's really great. And again, to me, this is, because the rant I was going to say to you was, and I'm not going to press the rant button, but understanding that a 1-to-1 every month is completely irrelevant. It has no impact or influence on somebody other than distressing them, highlighting something they did a month ago. But a 1+1 these are continuous conversations. And I think that's what awesome management and leadership is. And the ability to have continuous conversations. And I don't need to be a line manager to do that. I can be a colleague to colleague, peer to peer. Yeah.
I know two friends of RLC, Hayden, who's coming on the show, Hayden Brett, and Andrew Stewart, who came to an RLC retreat many years ago and set up an accountability conversation that they have every couple of weeks. I think it's every 2 weeks. The same day every 2 weeks. They still get together all these years later, Debbie. They don't work together. It's a supportive mentoring conversation, and they still get loads out of it. You can do that yourself. Mm-hmm. It's not just down to those.
One of the people I'm coaching, I do some work for the Marketing Academy, a little bit of plug there. It's pro bono work, but it's really, really interesting work. So it's working in a field, and again, what Dave talked about before is...
Just to clarify, she's not actually in a field?
No, I'm not in a field. But it's in an area of business and industry that I'm now foraying into, which is the marketing industry, which is full of creatives, which is high stimulus for me. But what's really interesting is that I coach in the UK, but now I'm coaching in the US as well on a scholarship program. And what's really interesting is that the differences, cultural differences and expectations that happen across, from America to English and how we interpret that. It's really interesting. But they had an accountability as well, but that was with our own sibling. So I think there's some really exciting things around 1+1 conversations, continuous conversations, not referencing the past and allowing somebody to represent themselves in the now and the as is. And I think those are really important. And then ensuring that you don't walk around with the agenda and that everybody else has the agenda, because you're not responsible for everybody else, but having a heightened awareness that could be somebody else's agenda means you are going to act more considered, more open, and you're going to respond a lot better.
I think it's great advice, Debbie, and I think that applying that as one of the solutions from today, Remember, we started off talking about, we've ranted a few times, each of us have, about applying a paradigm or view or a set way of thinking about somebody that's time-stamped in the past and not giving that person a chance to change, evolve, adapt, or be better. And also, when you apply it as a leader and you treat them that way, you're not giving them a place to grow either, or more importantly, feel safe, right? Because it takes two people to be courageous about where you're actually at. Whether it's coaching with edge or whether it's being a colleague with purpose, they both make a big difference, don't they?
It's very cliche.
Thanks,
it's a
Debbie.
little bit too cliche for
Anyway,
that one.
Now, what we want you to do at the end of this today is to think about the creative side of this conversation. So if you're listening to this, what are the things you can do to make your brand stronger, to be more aligned with what you say you are? I remember years ago, to finish off from my side, sitting in an interview, Debbie, for an executive post and asking this guy, I said, hey, and he sat there doing a good job. What are your personal values? Now, this was for a 6-figure salary. Didn't have a clue. And I'm thinking about this 6-figure salary and you don't know what your value set is. I mean, that's just one example, isn't it?
No, but so again, I could really seriously rant.
You're not allowed. You have 2 minutes.
I'm not going to rant, okay? But just in reference to, we don't educate people on these things. As a child growing up, I should be coached and nurtured and guided to understand what my values are. I think it's so important. I really do. And I actually feel sorry for that person sat in an interview. Also, just a bit of a plug, I am currently building our new program, Dave, of being a personal coach or a life coach, whatever your terminology is. It's not my favourite, but actually being a best version coach and giving you the tools and techniques, 1, to be the coach, and 2, to do it. And actually values is a big part of that, and defining. The coach has to go through the whole program first before we'll allow them to represent RLC. So really exciting.
And I love that, Debbie. That's great insights. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking about values, if I could just share with you over the last 5 years, the one thing about values that you really mustn't do, and I come across this all the time in the US.
We've got 59 seconds left, else it stops recording.
Is having 10 of them. Anyway, this has been Double D Do Business. We have been talking today about being your best version self. Taking some time out to do some self-coaching. Think about your brand. Think about your network. Think about your self-support system. We've got loads of really brilliant guests coming on the system. And
next week, tying into this one, just as a summary, is we've got the 1-minute feedback from Chris. So Chris is going to be present and we'll introduce him and have an awesome interview for next week too.
A brilliant system online to help you and your team and even your clients give you feedback and do it in 1 minute. So, Debbie, any last closing remarks?
No, awesome first episode, if I say so myself.
You did say so yourself, unless somebody was impersonating you.
So to finalise our Double D Do Business, and we've used a different process of recording this week, which is via the desktop and not via the mobile. So it's actually cut us off at 30 minutes. So apologies for that, but I hope you like the jingle in between. So we wanted to say, and as Dave says, every success in your learning. Enjoy applying the lessons and the things that we've discussed this week. And we look forward to you joining us next week and finding more about feedback. Have the most awesome week.